exercise is great, right? And nothing's better than a little bit of chocolate protein right after you finish. However, there was a day in my life that exercise was not so great. My favorite exercise, the deadlift, in 2008, changed my life forever. Caused the most pain in my back I've ever felt, most pain in my body I've ever felt, crippled me. But I also want to tell you how I got back to today, getting back to doing over 400 pounds, pain-free. In 2008, around that time, I was just getting started in my personal training career. I was working at a facility called Persicini Fitness in Newmarket. Sadly, they are closed now, but it was awesome. And every time I went down the gym floor, I got to talk to people on the gym floor about what I was doing and why I was doing it. I loved getting bigger, I loved getting stronger, didn't necessarily love exercise, but as you guys can probably imagine, I was in love with the benefits. Seeing muscle show up on my body was cool, getting leaner was cool, and then seeing more and more weight get stacked on the bar on each side and seeing it go up each week, each month, and how big it was, and hearing the clang of the plates, I loved all of that. It was awesome. So I decided I was going to prepare for a powerlifting competition because for me, I was getting so much stronger than I was putting on muscle that between bodybuilding and powerlifting as a single man sport seemed like something I could do. I was getting really strong. I actually worked up to the point where I was deadlifting 500 pounds, squatting over 400, and benching really close to 300, over 300 at some point, but at that point, wasn't quite there. I remember the day pretty clearly when I hurt my back. It did change my life forever. It was in 2008, as I've already said, and I went down the floor and I was doing this like conditioning endurance workout, preparing my body to have greater endurance with deadlifts. And I was doing 3 exercises in a row, and 2 of them were different variations of deadlifts, each at that time with over 400 pounds on the bar. Was really trying to build up how much volume I could do. And I went down, and on the second set of the deadlift, you guys have all felt it, I went down and I did my set, and all of a sudden I felt this little twinge on the left side lower part of my back on that guy right behind me there. Little twinge, nothing big. And I was, in my 20s at that time, and I felt pretty strong, pretty robust, little twinge, but that's not gonna stop me. What do they say? No pain, no gain, right? So what I did was I went to the third set, like most of us would do. And I forgot about the twinge, I ignored the twinge more likely, and I picked up the bar and I started doing my set, and on the second rep, boom, my back blew. It hurt. I remember it felt like someone it was like a gunshot in my back, and then it just felt like everything released and I collapsed over, I dropped the weight down on the ground, and it sucked, man. It was the most pain that I have ever felt in my entire life. It sucked. It sucked. And so what I had to do after that, I was in so much pain, I had to take all the weight off the bar, which is like one of the most embarrassing things when you're keeled over and you can't move and you're taking the weight off the bar slowly. And then I went home. I had clients in the afternoon, clients during the day. If anyone knows me professionally, I never miss a day of work for anything. I almost never cancel clients unless it's an absolute emergency. I think maybe there's been 5 that I've had to move in the last 4 years for emergencies, last minute. It's a big thing for me. So I was in so much pain, I had to cancel those people. I tried everything I possibly could do to fix it. I tried all the therapies you can name. I did everything. And I remember I went to my doctor, and this is the kicker, right? I went to my doctor at the time and I said, my back, I hurt it when I was exercising. And I was just in the early 20s. And he goes, I'll never forget it. He goes, well, you are getting older. You're probably gonna have to change how you exercise. Now, I sometimes think this is true, but I was in my early 20s, and it was weird because if I was getting older and there was gonna be an injury that was gonna stop me because of aging, why would it happen on just one side? Shouldn't it happen on both sides? Shouldn't it be symmetrical, like wearing of car tires, not just one side? It was nuts. So fast track a couple months. Nothing had helped. I had tried everything. I saw a bunch of people to help me. There was no change. I'll tell you what did help me though. Getting back to exercise. I hadn't exercised for a few weeks because I really wanted to make sure that I felt okay, and I think it was about 2 months that I started getting back down to the gym floor. And what I started doing was I started exercising and contracting all the muscles I could where I didn't feel pain or discomfort, where I didn't have limited motion. And it took some time, but I worked and created customized exercises that helped me move better, feel stronger, and get sturdier, but at the same time not poking the bear. So there were definitely joints that I was not exercising at that time. It took a few weeks, but I got back to the point where I could actually bend over and touch my toes without pain and do what looked like a deadlift-like motion, which was pretty awesome. Let's skip a couple years, just a few, and it is March 2019. And about 4 years ago till today, I decided to try and embark back on the process of deadlifting again. And it was definitely a bit of a journey. It definitely took a lot of work for me to get back to there. But with all those exercises that I discovered that worked for me back in the day at Persicini Fitness, all the way to today in my own facility, Strata, I've got a few things that do work, things that help me get back to deadlifting. Because although the deadlifts changed my life, it's one of my favorite exercises. I love the idea of picking up the weight. It's definitely an exercise that I do more out of enjoyment than out of health. But I also really like the challenge of trying to figure out how much I can do, what I can do, and how I can get back to a pretty heavy weight for fun. There are certainly a few exercises that have really changed my life to help me get back to moving freely with my back and getting back to even doing deadlifts. One is training hip flexion at a pretty high level, getting my hip flexors quite strong so my hip mobility is active and strong. The other one is this exercise that you'll see here really quick that I call the reverse deadlift, where you're taking weight and you're pushing down to the ground, where you're contracting the front of your body concentrically, but there is control eccentrically with your extensors taking you down. It's a really cool exercise, and for me, it just makes my back feel better. But I mean, why do I love deadlifts so much? I mean, there's just something about the way that it looks, the way that it makes me feel, the way that my whole body tenses up. And when you're going up to the bar and you slide those weights together and you hear that clink, that squish, and then all of a sudden you're looking and you see the weight slowly lift up off the rack or off the ground. And there's that point where you look at the weight from the mirror or from the corner of your eye and you just see that weight slowly lift up off the rack and slowly come up into the air. And then finally you're standing and you're seeing this massive amount of weight on each side of your body and you go, wow, I did it. I did it. And it's taken 11 years for me to get to the point where I can actually pick up 400 pounds some days. And it's an amazing achievement. It feels so good to be able to do 400 pounds. I'll never be able to get back to 500 pounds. 400 pounds is pretty tough for me. And by tough, I don't mean like it feels like I'm straining my body, but I'll tell you what, I do feel my back. I'm aware of muscular changes from one side to the other. I don't have pain, but I just am aware of the difference. And this 400 pounds that you'll see in a second, yeah, I can do it. It feels pretty good, but also there's some days I can't do it. And one thing that I've learned as a lesson from my deadlift injury 11 years ago is really how to listen to my body and how to help other people listen to their body. It's funny because it's like this weird relationship with having such a bad injury and something that still kind of haunts me. I mean, on a day-to-day basis, because of what I do and seeing a muscle system specialist to help me out and being conscious of not poking my back and not doing too much, my back feels great. I hardly am aware of it. Maybe 1 or 2 days a year does it slow me down a little bit. But it's also taught me the value of respecting my body. And in a twisted way, as I was talking about with a friend of mine yesterday, I really think that every person would be lucky to have, in a weird way, an injury that just slows them down enough to make them feel human and realize that they're vulnerable, but at the same time to open up their eyes to see that they can get their body so strong to make sure that those injuries don't happen. I mean, as young people or strong people, we sometimes think we're invincible and we can just keep going and going and going. And unfortunately, that is just impossible. The human body is breaking down as we get older, especially over the age of 30. So we have to respect that. So I don't mean I think everybody should get injured, but I do think that everybody should experience something that makes them feel vulnerable a little bit. And then that way you can learn how to create exercises for you, but it also teaches you the lesson of how to share that with other people, especially if you're a personal trainer. If there was anything that I wanted you to take away from this video, it would be that, yes, sometimes exercise injures people. And like I've talked about in the past, I was doing absolutely too much for what my body could tolerate. There is no way any person should ever get injured when they're exercising. But if you have experienced an injury while you've exercised, and it stopped you, slowed you down, made you feel more vulnerable, caused damage, that is such a valuable lesson. you can actually learn how to use your body better, contract better, move better. Because frankly, at the end of the day, regardless of what we can do now in our 20s, 30s, and 40s that make us feel strong and robust, we got a long life to live. And if we beat up our body to the point where we can't move even in our 20s and 30s and 40s, imagine how you're gonna be when you're 70 and 80. We wanna have high quality motion. So anyway, thank you so much for hearing my story. I hope you enjoyed this. At the end of the day, I just want you guys all to be strong and sturdy and feel as good as I do, but also be able to do the things that you love, because exercise should prepare you for the things that you love to do. And for me, one of the things that I love to do is I love to deadlift. And although it caused me some trouble, I've worked my way back to being able to do some pretty cool stuff with it. Thank you so much for watching. This is Brandon from Strata Interim Performance. If you found this interesting, please share it, please subscribe, and please let me know what you think. And if you have a story where exercise has injured you, but you've used exercise to overcome that sensation and get back to doing what you love, please share it. I'd love to hear it. Thank you.